Hi, my name is Pam Frampton, and I'm the course developer for the school curriculum course in your program for learning about school leadership. So far in this course, over the past 4 weeks, we have been learning quite a bit. And we've learned about what it takes to be a creator of change, what it takes to create the proper culture in a school to affect change. We've learned about healthy cultures and toxic cultures. We've been doing some reading from some of the writers that are leading the efforts to produce a sense of urgency in the schools and to face the accountability measures that are now facing schools, and to bring about school achievement for our children, which of course is always our mission. And as we conclude this course, I would like for you to have the chance to listen to two people whom I respect very much, who are leaders in the curricular field in which they serve. One of them is with us today, Mary Ann Chapko. She is the principal of a school in Northwest Indiana and has won many awards, is a published author, and is a very respected school leader. She is going to talk with us today about what are the best practices that she has been following to bring about a great school culture, and she'll tell you more about that in a moment. Then once we have finished talking with Mary Ann, we will speak with Cynthia Trevino, who is a school leader also in the Northwest Indiana region, and her story will be different from the first one, and we'll talk more about that when we have the video with Cynthia. But first, welcome, Mary Ann. It's nice to have you with us. First, can you just tell us briefly about your school, the demographics, and about what makes it unique?
Certainly. My school recently doubled in size in the last 2 years due to construction and redistricting, so square footage-wise definitely doubled. Not entirely students, but I have that capability. We've gone from about a school of 290 to a school of 540, and I have picked up the early childhood development disabilities program, so I have about 40 little 3, 4, and 5-year-olds for the corporation and housed in my building, and I'm also running that program, as Crown Point has recently left the special education co-op and taken on our own exceptional learners.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And so that's another little piece.
Mm-hmm.
Demographically, we are about 89% Caucasian and have little pockets of, as every school is having increasing diversity, pockets in all of the areas that you can think of. And surprisingly, we have 8 different languages represented in our English language learners.
Wow.
We have a student from South Africa that speaks Dutch and Spanish, and many Macedonians, Serbians, Urdu. So it's a unique combination in that you're predominantly white, but you have still a
lot of diversity.
Kind of group of English language learners that need to be serviced.
Yeah.
Our poverty level is the lowest in our school district at about 9%, and that's pretty much pretty stable.
So you represent the demographic of the more affluent, the more highly professional family backgrounds,
Correct.
and so on, and less racial diversity.
Definitely, and increasingly more and more as our community is looked upon as a place to move to.
Oh yeah.
By leaders of companies,
Sure.
national companies, and we're being selected, and my school in particular is being selected. I'm getting more and more educated parents and who want to interview me and decide if my public school is
So I'm going to assume something that I've learned over my 40 years in education, and that is you were not able to simply say, well, we're an affluent school, then we have nothing to worry about. I would guess that you have made some real efforts to improve the curriculum of your school, as well as the culture and the environment, and why don't you share those with us? What made you feel like you need to make some changes?
Well, it's interesting. Is when I've been there 15 years, and I thought I could maybe last politically 5, so this is 15, and I don't feel like I'm in danger of
Good
leaving
for
yet. And we did pass a referendum last night, which was a huge
Great.
piece. It's consumed us this year for our community. But initially when I was given the school or handed it over, inherited the school, I was told, take a look. We have a deficit in math, even though we're a high-performing school. And there definitely were deficits, and I think my first lesson I learned beyond forming a team and setting the bar high was you work on one area and you have to be careful because it's a fine line you walk, because then the other area that was good tends to drop.
Yeah, how true.
And so it's a constant balancing act of keeping all of your cores performing at an appropriate level.
So how did that go when you presented this to the staff and the community, that you were going to work on raising the math achievement?
I think initially they were very excited about the fact that, well, we have a new principal and they're going to, take the bull by the horns and lead us through this. And I was kind of proud of myself for where we started, and then our language arts scores dropped. And I realized you got to watch what you're doing. And that's been a constant process. This past year, we reached our goal throughout all the school improvement years, which started about 2002, was always the ultimate goal was to reach a 90% passing level in ISTEP. That was the holy grail. Well, this past year, we reached a 95% passing rate or higher across the whole school.
Fantastic.
And you can think, well, sit back on your laurels and enjoy that. I think it's harder once you hit the higher levels to maintain that level.
So what kind of best practices did you employ? What sort of strategies did you use?
I think it's really important that you build your team first,
so you
before you do anything else.
Starting with the professional community.
Right.
Okay.
You have to start there. And then specifically drill down into building your grade level teams. Of course, that depends on who you can hire and how you can place people. And initially, all of us as principals inherit a building, so you're working with what you have. But I've always felt the philosophy of playing to people's strengths and minimizing their weaknesses will get you through those times.
Right.
So you can size that up pretty quickly when you have your building. Right now, I've replaced my entire building.
Wow.
Except for one person.
Wow.
And I was initially the youngest person on the staff. Now I'm one of the oldest. So in 15 years, that's how quickly it can change. We have great grade level teams, and those serve you in a number of ways because they'll keep your parents happy, your teachers learn how to work well together, and you have to insist upon, as a leader, as an instructional leader, consistency in your curriculum and specifically within your grade level teams. And that's one thing I've always said. Don't have one person doing this and one person doing that, because it's not going to work and it's not benefiting the students to their full potential. So definite consistency and definitely a rigorous curriculum. Decide where you're going, and everybody has to buy into it.
What kind of role did you play? Do you sit in on the grade level meetings?
I sit in on, we meet grade level wise at least once a month with me, and they meet at least twice a week. It's a constant dialogue.
How do you balance? We've learned in the course already about distributive leadership. We've talked about distributing the authority, but at the same time we've also talked about the model of principal as servant, making sure that the principal is heavily involved and seen as a co-worker with the staff. Talk about how you managed all that.
I've always told them that I consider myself their facilitator, and I would never ask them to do something I wouldn't do. So once you build that level of trust, which is an important piece that you initially start with, then they believe you when you tell them things. And it almost gets to the point where my fellow principal and myself, who came in at the same time, and we both have great teams, they almost follow you too closely, and I do want to be questioned sometime. I'm not, I do, but I also do want you to believe in what we're doing, because if you don't and just give me lip service that you do, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I have to be convinced that you're going to follow through.
What would you say has worked well in all the things you've tried to do with your grade level teams, and what were challenges that you had to overcome?
I think one of the things we're most proudest of as an entire team when the applied skills came out for ISTEP and there were the writing scores, and we really became data-driven.
Excuse me. ISTEP is what the Indiana Achievement Test is called, for those of you who are not Hoosiers. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, I found out my staff knew nothing about data. So you become a teacher of tests and measurements. Go back to those days and teach them about data, because data needs to drive everything that you do more and more with each passing year. That becomes more important. We realized that there was a rubric from the state where you were scored on your essays from 1 to 6, 6 being the high. And basically, you need a 4 to even pass. And I don't think a lot of teachers even understood that. They thought a 2 or a 3 was pretty doggone good. Well, I hate to tell you, you're not passing the test. So we analyzed individually all our scores and started reviewing scans, and they had never done anything like this, and started realizing you needed anchor papers and you needed to show examples to students of what a 5 or 6 looks like, or what a 4 looks like, and we became involved with Christina Smeckens, and everybody received training through her. This is moving into our school improvement goal, which was literacy and writing. And we initially had no 6s, no 5s, some 4s, and a variety of 3s and 2s, and even some 1s. So our initial school improvement goal way back when, say 8 years ago, was to get everybody at a 4. And we thought that was a very lofty goal. And I don't know if we even really realized 4 was passing. We just thought that was a high number, but that's really where you need to be. Well, over the last 7 years, we've tracked all that data. We've tracked individual students. I do a lot of that, and then they analyze the data. And as of last year, we had over 100 6s from our 3, 4, and 5. It's only 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders are tested. And more than 100 5s, and everybody had a 4, and I think there was one lone 3 out of those numbers. Well, that's how you get to a 95% passing.
Yes.
And we just, as you watch the numbers as I've done them on a spreadsheet, you could just see it. Even our school board, who really doesn't understand data, could just see how they were moving to the right. And that, more than anything, it's just kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your teachers realize what we're doing is working, and if I wasn't on the bandwagon, boy, I better get on it because everybody else is. And
did you have any people who just remained disgruntled, or they all eventually bought in?
They are all in.
That's a good success story.
That's a good success story.
What advice would you give to the new principals out there who are trying to implement curricular change? Now, I realize, and they all know, that you're representing a community of professional people of a high level of income, but at the same time, the resistance to change is universal. So what kind of advice would you give? Maybe some books that they could read on how to affect change in adults and children?
That's an interesting question. Because the principal I'm closest to, that we are co-authors and work together, even though we're in the same corporation, she's on the other end of the spectrum.
Well, we interviewed her for another course on school and community, so we know her.
But yet we still work together and have so many, most of what we do is similar, not discrepant.
Yeah, and she represents a lower income
definitely.
population.
And her parents tend not to be very educated, so the whole piece is who you hire and who's on your team and how you manipulate that team. The team is going to determine and then you're working on school culture, which goes directly and runs on a parallel course with it. If you can control those two things and get your parents as a third piece of it, you're not going to fail. You're going to get there. But it's a constant balancing game, and you can't give up. You can't ever sit back and say, it's working now, I can quit. I can just sit in my office. Because as soon as you do that, something pops up, and you have to be ready to always have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in your school.
And I understand you've just been selected as a Blue Ribbon School. We're very impressed with that. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much.
Are there any literature you think people should look at, or any books you want to mention that would be helpful for them as they endeavor to be leaders in their buildings?
We just did a professional development in our own administrative team using the book Switch.
Switch.
And just when change is hard, I believe is the second byline to that book. And this has been a tough year for us in our school corporation with decreasing finances and all the changes that could have happened. I mean, we woke up this morning and we're not losing anybody, but our fellow school corporation in the state is losing 81 teachers in their transportation department because their referendum did not pass.
Wow.
So we feel very blessed this morning to be there, but we read that book all year, and it's got some great analogies and just for you and working with your teams and your staffs you're going to face change, and that's the one thing that Dr. Frampton is correct. It's always there.
And I believe the authors are Heath and Heath.
Heath and Heath.
Heath and Heath.
Personally, I've enjoyed reading anything Todd Whitaker has had to write, and Bob Marzano is also great.
Yeah, we read Marzano in the course.
Great series of books. And just for myself, I'll hold it up. And, Master Teacher is a great company. North Star for Principals is a subscription service that started a few years back, and it's got an online component. It's a monthly, very pertinent. This one just came yesterday, and I'm already reading through for the end of the year of just some great ideas of what I can be doing with my particular community and staff. So if you don't have a lot of money, that's a good one to go for.
Right. North Star.
North Star.
Okay,
for
thank you
principals.
so much.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else you want to share with our students that I didn't give you a chance to say? Or
Well, good luck. Hang in there. We need you.
it's a challenge. It is.
We need you.
Well, thank you so
You'll never
much.
be bored in this job. I'll just tell you that. You'll never be a clock watcher because the days fly.
The days fly by.
The days
Well,
fly
thank
by.
you so much for helping us out, and we appreciate
All right.
it.
Thank you.
And students, when you go to the course site, you will see posted some questions that are based on this video that you are to post at the course site, your responses. Thank you.